You are currently living in a state of information gluttony. Every waking second, your consciousness is being colonized by the digital debris of a billion strangers, their outrage, their highlights, their trivialities, and their filtered realities. Your mind, which was designed for the sharp clarity of the hunter and the deep focus of the builder, has been reduced to a frantic reaction machine. You are twitchy, you are anxious, and you are perpetually exhausted, yet you have produced nothing of lasting value. This is not a character flaw, it is a systemic overload. Your internal operating system is cluttered with background apps that are draining your cognitive battery. To reclaim your sovereignty, you must perform a mental detox. This is not a digital sabbatical or a weekend at a retreat. This is a surgical deprogramming. You are going to learn how to starve the distractions, incinerate the mental clutter, and rebuild your attention span from the ground up. A mental detox is the weaponization of boredom. In a world that is terrified of silence, the ability to sit in a room alone and think is a superpower. Most people use their phones to escapism the discomfort of their own thoughts, effectively atrophying their ability to solve complex problems or generate original ideas. To detox is to enter the cognitive void. You are going to intentionally sever the dopamine loops that keep you enslaved to the scroll. You are moving from a state of high-frequency noise to a state of low-frequency power. This is the blackout protocol. You are not just cleaning your mind, you are hardening it. You are creating a sanctuary of focus that the world cannot penetrate. And by the time this process is complete, you will move with a quiet intensity that makes the average, distracted person look like a flickering shadow. You are no longer a consumer of content, you are the architect of consciousness. The first stage of the detox is the audit of the inputs. You must realize that your mind is a product of your information diet. If you consume garbage, you will produce garbage. Most of what you know is actually mental junk food, sensationalist news, rage-bait social threads, and the shallow opinions of the unaccomplished. You are going to perform a relentless culling. You are going to unfollow, unsubscribe, and disconnect from every source that does not contribute to your primary mission. You are moving from quantity to quality, but you are realizing that knowing everything about nothing is the ultimate tax on your potential. By starving the noise, you allow the signal to emerge. You are not missing out, you are opting in to a higher level of reality. You are finally light enough to think your own thoughts. Chapter 1. The dopamine reset. You are currently the victim of a high-tech hijacking. Your brain, an organ evolved over millions of years to reward you for finding food, securing shelter, and achieving social status, has been infected by a digital parasite. This parasite is the dopamine loop. Every time you swipe, scroll, like, or refresh, you are triggering a micro-explosion of neurochemistry that tells your brain something important just happened. But in reality, nothing happened. You just consumed a pixelated ghost of a thought, a flash of outrage, or a curated lie from a stranger's life. This constant dripping of artificial stimulation has desensitized your receptors. You have moved from using technology to being operated by technology. To detox your mind, you must first understand the physics of the void. You must perform a dopamine reset. This is the process of starving the addiction until your baseline returns to zero. You are going to learn how to resensitize your soul to the high-value efforts of deep work, deep thought, and deep presence. The first law of the dopamine reset is the law of the chemical withdrawal. Most people attempt to reduce their screen time, hoping that moderation will save them. When this is the alcoholic's delusion, You cannot moderate a system that was specifically engineered by thousands of PhDs to bypass your willpower. To reset, you must go cold turkey. You must enter a period of total abstinence from all low-value stimuli. This means no social media, no infinite scroll news, no passive video consumption, and no digital validation. For the first 48 to 72 hours, you will feel a physical ache in your attention span. You will find yourself reaching for your pocket every 30 seconds, searching for a ghost vibration that isn't there. This is the withdrawal phase. Your brain is screaming for the easy hit. You must observe this craving with a clinical detachment. You are not bored. You are healing. You are burning off the neurochemical sludge that has been clogging your engine of focus. Consider the architecture of the boredom threshold. In the modern world, boredom is treated as a disease to be cured by a smartphone. But to the sovereign, boredom is the forge of genius. When you kill the distraction, you force your mind to look inward. For the first time in years, you will hear the background noise of your own unresolved thoughts. It will be uncomfortable. You will feel anxious, restless, and empty. This is the cognitive void. Most people panic at this stage and run back to the noise. But you are going to occupy the void. You are going to realize that boredom is the precondition for original thought. When your brain can no longer outsource its entertainment to an app, it will begin to generate its own intensity. You will find yourself noticing the texture of the walls, the rhythm of your breath, and the complexity of a single problem. You are reclaiming your power of observation. You are moving from a receiver to a transmitter. The second law is the principle of high-resistance living. The digital world is designed to be frictionless. It wants to slide you from one video to the next, one purchase to the next, one outrage to the next, without you ever having to think. This ease is psychologically rotting you. To detox, you must reintroduce friction into your life. So you must make the easy things hard and the hard things possible. You move from digital consumption to analog production. You write with a pen on paper, you read physical books that require sustained attention, and you engage in long-form conversations without a device in sight. This resistance is like weightlifting for the mind. Every time you force your eyes to stay on a page when they want to flicker to a notification, you are building neural density. You are hardening your attention span. You are realizing that the best things in life live on the other side of friction. You have moved from laziness to labor. Furthermore, you must master the economics of cognitive energy. You have a finite amount of deep focus available to you each day. Every micro decision you make, which app to open, which email to answer, which comment to read, is a withdrawal from your internal bank account. Most people are bankrupt by 10 a.m. because they have spent their best energy on trivialities. To be dangerously focused, you must develop a ruthless cognitive budget. You protect your mornings with a sovereign wall. No inputs are allowed until your primary deep work is complete. Amid you realize that responsiveness is often just a high-end distraction. You stop reacting to the world's agenda and start executing your own. You are moving from high-frequency reaction to low-frequency impact. You are investing your attention where it produces the highest yield. You must also confront the trap of the digital social mirror. Much of your mental clutter comes from comparing your internal reality to other people's external highlights. You are haunted by the ghosts of people you don't even like. This social comparison is a pollutant in your mental reservoir. During the detox, you must perform a total social blackout. You must realize that what other people are doing is zero-value information for your current mission. You delete the audience from your mind, and you stop performing your life for an invisible camera. You move from external validation to internal integrity. You realize that the only version of you that matters is the one that is standing in the mirror at the end of the day. By cutting the social tether, you gain the freedom to be authentic. You are no longer reflecting the groupthink, you are generating your own philosophy. In the dopamine reset, you will encounter the lure of the pseudo-productive. This is the urge to check your email, organize your desktop, or read a self-help article instead of doing the actual hard work. This is just procrastination in a suit and tie. It is another way your brain tries to sneak a dopamine hit of feeling busy. You must learn to identify the fake win. You must realize that movement is not progress. You strip away the busy work and expose the core challenge. You sit with the difficulty until it yields. This psychological endurance is the hallmark of the detoxed mind. You are no longer scared of the hard task because you have lost the need for the easy escape. You have become cognitively resilient. The third law is the law of the sensory return. As the dopamine sludge leaves your system, something miraculous happens and the world becomes vivid again. You find intense pleasure in a simple meal, profound clarity in a walk in the woods, and deep joy in a solitary thought. You have lowered your threshold for satisfaction. You are no longer chasing the high, you are occupying the present. This sensory precision is the ultimate weapon for creativity and problem solving. You see the patterns that the distracted miss. You hear the subtext that the loud ignore. You have moved from numbness to vibrancy. You are sovereign because you own your internal state. You are confident because you are fully awake. As you conclude this first chapter on the dopamine reset, perform the digital sacrifice. Power down your primary device and place it in another room. Sit in a chair with nothing but a notebook and a pen. For the next 60 minutes, you are to do nothing but observe the static in your head. Do not fix it. Do not judge it. Just watch the withdrawal. You are breaking the chains. You are giving yourself the permission to be silent. You have started the detox, and you have realized that the void is not a pit, it is a pedestal. Chapter 2. The Information Diet. You have survived the initial shock of the dopamine reset. The frantic twitching of your attention has slowed, and the digital withdrawal is moving from an acute ache to a dull, manageable hum. But the void you have created is a vacuum, and a vacuum is a dangerous thing if it is not consciously filled. And if you simply remove the noise without replacing it with a superior signal, the old habits will eventually breach your defenses. Your mind is a biological processing plant, and the quality of the finished product, your ideas, your decisions, and your confidence is dictated entirely by the raw materials you feed it. Most people are cognitive scavengers, consuming whatever information scraps the algorithms throw at them. To truly detox, you must transition from a passive consumer to a sovereign curator. You are going to develop a strategic information diet. This is the process of surgical selection, where you treat every data point that enters your mind as a controlled substance. You are moving from knowing everything to mastering the essential. The first law of the information diet is the law of low entropy input. Entropy is a measure of disorder and noise. Most modern information, social media feeds, 24-hour news cycles, trending topics, is high entropy. It is fragmented, sensationalized, and designed to trigger short-term emotional spikes rather than long-term intellectual growth. It leaves you informed but ignorant. To detox, and you must shift your consumption toward low-entropy information. These are the foundational texts, the deep dive essays, the technical manuals, and the timeless philosophies. You are looking for information that has a high half-life. Ask yourself, will this information be useful to me in 5 years? If the answer is no, it is mental junk food. If the answer is yes, it is a nutrient. You are moving from breadth to depth. You would rather spend 10 hours mastering one principle than 10 minutes skimming 60 opinions. You are building a library, not scrolling a feed. Consider the architecture of the just-in-time learning. Most people practice just-in-case learning. They hoard trivia, tips, and random facts in the hope that they might be useful someday. This cognitive hoarding creates mental clutter and analysis paralysis. It is a form of productive procrastination. The sovereign practices just-in-time learning. You only consume information that is directly applicable to your current mission. If you are building a business, you study unit economics. If you are hardening your body, you study biomechanics. Everything else is distraction. This surgical focus ensures that your input is immediately converted into action. You are not collecting data. You are downloading tools. By limiting your inquiry to the immediate challenge, you quiet the noise of the unnecessary. You realize that not knowing about a global scandal or a pop culture event is a competitive advantage. Your ignorance of the trivial is the source of your focus on the vital. The second law is the principle of the primary source. In the digital age, we mostly consume interpretations of interpretations. We read a tweet about an article that summarizes a study. Each layer of processing adds bias, simplification, and noise. This is how groupthink is manufactured. To detox your mind, you must go to the source. If you want to understand a philosophy, read the original text. If you want to understand a market, look at the raw data. If you want to understand a conflict, read the primary documents. This intellectual rigor is difficult and slow, which is exactly why it is powerful. While everyone else is parroting the same pre-chewed narrative, you are synthesizing your own reality. You are developing first principles thinking. You are not told what to think. You observe the evidence and conclude. This epistemic sovereignty is the foundation of dangerous confidence. You are unmanipulatable because you know the math behind the magic. Furthermore, you must master the economics of attention spans. The information industry is designed to shatter your attention into micro units. It wants you to click, jump, and scan. This fragmented processing makes deep thought impossible. To detox, you must retrain the long gaze. You must commit to long-form content. You read books that require hours of concentration. You listen to lectures that span half a day. You engage with complex arguments that cannot be summed up in a caption. This sustained input forces your brain to wire for complexity. You are building the neural circuitry for sovereignty. You realize that speed is the enemy of depth. You are not rushing to finish the book, and you are marinating in the insight. You move from skimming to contemplation. You are becoming the kind of person who can hold a single thought until it explodes into an actionable strategy. You must also confront the trap of the intellectual echo chamber. Even if you are consuming high-quality information, you are at risk of stagnation if you only consume what agrees with you. This is confirmation bias, and it is a mental sedative. To keep your mind sharp and detoxed, you must introduce controlled conflict. You must seek out the strongest version of the arguments you dislike. You test your philosophy against the steel of a competent adversary. This intellectual stress testing ensures that your confidence is not brittle delusion, but hardened truth. You are not searching for a tribe. You are searching for the flaw in your own logic. You move from certainty to validity. You realize that changing your mind in the face of better data is the highest display of sovereignty. In the information diet, you will encounter the lure of the infinite search. This is the feeling that you need one more piece of information before you can start. This is a defense mechanism of the ego to avoid the pain of execution. You must develop a binary filter for information. Information is either actionable or it is entertainment. If you cannot apply what you just learned within the next 24 hours, you are entertaining yourself with facts. You must stop the intake and start the output. You realize that execution provides better data than research. You move from student to practitioner. You detox the theory by applying it to the pavement of reality. You find the gaps in your knowledge through the friction of the work, and then you return to the diet to fill the gap. This is the feedback loop of the elite. The third law is the law of the silent integration. For information to become wisdom, it requires space. If you move immediately from reading to emailing to scrolling, the data never settles. It stays on the surface and is eventually washed away by the next wave of input. To detox, you must practice active reflection. After a deep input, you must have a period of silence. You walk, you sit, you stare at a wall. You allow your subconscious to categorize, link, and simplify what you have learned. You are digesting the meal. This downtime is not wasted time, and it is processing time. You realize that the most important thoughts occur in the gaps between the inputs. You move from hoarding to synthesizing. You are growing your internal operating system. As you conclude this chapter on the information diet, perform a curation ritual. Look at your digital environment. Identify 3 sources of high entropy noise: the apps, the news sites, the influencers, and eliminate them permanently. Identify 1 source of low entropy depth: the classic book, the technical course, the primary data, and commit to it for the next 30 days. You are closing the gates to the vermin and opening the doors to the kings. You have given yourself the permission to be ignorant of the trivial, and you have realized that mastery is the result of knowing less, but knowing it better. You are dangerous because your mind is pure. You are confident because your data is unassailable. Chapter 3. The Architecture of Privacy. You have cleansed the chemical pathways of your brain and curated the data streams entering your consciousness, and you are becoming a high-precision instrument. But there is a final external pollutant that can undo all your internal work: the social gaze. In the modern era, we are encouraged to live out loud. We are told that if a forest falls and no one posts it to a story, it didn't happen. We have been conditioned to broadcast our goals, our progress, and our victories in real time. This is a catastrophic error for the mind. To truly detox, you must master the architecture of privacy. This is the transition from public validation to the silent build. You are going to learn why secrecy is a cognitive nutrient and why anonymity is the ultimate power move. You are moving from a glass house to a subterranean fortress. You are going to learn how to disappear while standing in plain sight. The first law of the architecture of privacy is the law of the dopamine leak. When you have a big idea or a new goal, your brain is flooded with a potential energy. This is the drive you need to do the hard work of execution. However, when you tell someone about that goal, when you announce your new business or your fitness journey, and they give you a nod of approval or a like, your brain receives a premature reward. It feels like you've already won. The potential energy is vented into the atmosphere. You have leaked your fuel. This is why most people who talk about their dreams never achieve them. They have already consumed the satisfaction of the result without doing the Lebenszeit. To detox your mind, you must plug the leak. You must practice strategic silence. You do not speak of the plan. You only speak of the result once it is undeniable. You are compressing your ambition until it becomes diamond hard. You are moving from announcement to execution. Consider the psychology of the audience trap. When you live publicly, you are never truly alone. Even when you are by yourself, a part of your brain is rehearsing how you will present your current moment to the world. You are editing your reality in real time. This internal camera is a constant cognitive tax. It prevents true presence and original thought. You are performing your life rather than living it. To detox, you must kill the camera. You must enter the dark period. This is a season where you delete the audience entirely. You do things only for yourself. You work out when no one is watching. You study when no one knows. You build when no one is cheering. This privacy allows your mind to reset to its natural frequency. You stop asking, how does this look? And start asking, how does this work? And is this true? You are moving from perception to reality. You are becoming the person who doesn't need to be seen to be successful. The second law is the principle of the sovereign boundary. Most people have porous minds. They allow anyone with a notification or a casual comment to enter their psychological space. They are over-available. This social overexposure leads to mental fragmentation. To detox, you must build structural walls. You must become socially expensive. You withdraw your presence from the general market. You don't check in, you don't update, and you don't explain your absence. This mysterious withdrawal is not passive-aggressive. It is protective. It creates a vacuum of information around you. While everyone else is oversharing their insecurities, you are conserving your mystery. This mystery is a social multiplier. It makes your occasional input carry the weight of gold. You move from commodity to reserve. You are owning the access to your consciousness. Furthermore, you must master the economics of the hidden move. In any competitive environment, business, status, or influence, information asymmetry is your primary advantage. If the world knows your move before you make it, the world can counter you. If the world knows your weakness, the world can exploit you. Dangerous confidence is built on the unseen preparation. You study the market in silence. You acquire the skill in the shadows. You build the capital in the dark. By the time you reveal your position, the game is already over. You have won before the first shot was fired. This strategic stealth prevents the interference of critics, competitors, and well-meaning distractors. You realize that validation is a weakness and surprise is a strength. You move from predictable to inevitable. You must also confront the trap of the digital ghost. Even if you aren't posting, you are often lurking, watching the lives of others and allowing their vibrations to infect your detoxed mind. This is ghost living. It is a low-resolution form of envy and comparison. To build a true architecture of privacy, you must sever the social tether. You mute the world. You realize that what other people are doing is zero-value data for your internal engineering. You are not competing with the ghost of your peer group. You are competing with the potential of your future self. You move from reactionary envy to visionary obsession. You close the tab on the world so you can open the file on your identity. In the architecture of privacy, you will encounter the anxiety of the unseen. There will be a voice in your head that says, if no one knows I'm doing this, does it even matter? Or I'm being forgotten? This is the extinction burst of your social ego. It is terrified of insignificance. You must lean into this insignificance. You must realize that being forgotten by the mediocre is the prerequisite for being remembered by the great. You are trading temporary attention for permanent authority. You embrace the solitude as a laboratory. You realize that the most powerful version of you is the one who is completely self-contained, the one who could lose everything and still be whole because their value was built in the dark and is not dependent on the light of others. The third law is the law of the finished work. When you finally speak, you speak only through your output. You don't talk about writing a book. You hand over the manuscript. You don't talk about losing weight. You walk into the room with a transformed body. This finality is the highest form of confidence. It is non-negotiable because you did not seek approval during the process. The world cannot devalue the result. You have closed the loop yourself. This self-sustaining validation is the core of your detoxed mind. You have removed the need for outside air. You are aerobic. You are self-oxygenating. You have moved from seeking understanding to commanding results. As you conclude this chapter on privacy, to perform a blackout protocol, for the next 7 days, you will tell no one about your progress, your thoughts, or your discoveries. You will move through the world like a ghost. You will observe everything and reveal nothing. You will collect the energy that you usually vent in conversation and channel it into a single difficult task. You are building the walls of your fortress. You have given yourself the permission to be unknown, and you have realized that the only witness that matters is your own integrity. You are dangerous because you are hidden. You are confident because you are finished. Chapter 3. The Architecture of Privacy. You have cleansed the chemical pathways of your brain and curated the data streams entering your consciousness. You are becoming a high-precision instrument, but there is a final external pollutant that can undo all your internal work: the social gaze. In the modern era, we are encouraged to live out loud. We are told that if a forest falls and no one posts it to a story, it didn't happen. We have been conditioned to broadcast our goals, our progress, and our victories in real time. This is a catastrophic error for the mind. To truly detox, you must master the architecture of privacy. This is the transition from public validation to the silent build. You are going to learn why secrecy is a cognitive nutrient and why anonymity is the ultimate power move. You are moving from a glass house to a subterranean fortress. You are going to learn how to disappear while standing in plain sight. The first law of the architecture of privacy is the law of the dopamine leak. When you have a big idea or a new goal, your brain is flooded with a potential energy. This is the drive you need to do the hard work of execution. However, when you tell someone about that goal, when you announce your new business or your fitness journey, and they give you a nod of approval or a like, your brain receives a premature reward. It feels like you've already won. The potential energy is vented into the atmosphere. You have leaked your fuel. This is why most people who talk about their dreams never achieve them. They have already consumed the satisfaction of the result without doing the labor. To detox your mind, you must plug the leak. You must practice strategic silence. You do not speak of the plan, you only speak of the result once it is undeniable. You are compressing your ambition until it becomes diamond hard. You are moving from announcement to execution. Consider the psychology of the audience trap. When you live publicly, you are never truly alone. Even when you are by yourself, a part of your brain is rehearsing how you will present your current moment to the world. You are editing your reality in real time. This internal camera is a constant cognitive tax. It prevents true presence and original thought. You are performing your life rather than living it. To detox, you must kill the camera. You must enter the dark period. This is a season where you delete the audience entirely. You do things only for yourself. You work out when no one is watching. You study when no one knows. Or you build when no one is cheering. This privacy allows your mind to reset to its natural frequency. You stop asking, how does this look? And start asking, how does this work? And is this true? You are moving from perception to reality. You are becoming the person who doesn't need to be seen to be successful. The second law is the principle of the sovereign boundary. Most people have porous minds. They allow anyone with a notification or a casual comment to enter their psychological space. They are over-available. This social overexposure leads to mental fragmentation. To detox, you must build structural walls. You must become socially expensive. You withdraw your presence from the general market. You don't check in, you don't update, and you don't explain your absence. This mysterious withdrawal is not passive-aggressive, it is protective. It creates a vacuum of information around you. While everyone else is oversharing their insecurities, you are conserving your mystery. This mystery is a social multiplier. It makes your occasional input carry the weight of gold. You move from commodity to reserve. You are owning the access to your consciousness. Furthermore, you must master the economics of the hidden move. In any competitive environment, business, status, or influence, information asymmetry is your primary advantage. If the world knows your move before you make it, the world can counter you. If the world knows your weakness, the world can exploit you. Dangerous confidence is built on the unseen preparation. You study the market in silence. You acquire the skill in the shadows. You build the capital in the dark. By the time you reveal your position, the game is already over. You have won before the first shot was fired. This strategic stealth prevents the interference of critics, competitors, and well-meaning distractors. You realize that validation is a weakness and surprise is a strength. You move from predictable to inevitable. You must also confront the trap of the digital ghost. Even if you aren't posting, you are often lurking, watching the lives of others and allowing their vibrations to infect your detoxed mind. This is ghost living. It is a low-resolution form of envy and comparison. To build a true architecture of privacy, you must sever the social tether. You mute the world. You realize that what other people are doing is zero-value data for your internal engineering. You are not competing with the ghost of your peer group. and you are competing with the potential of your future self. You move from reactionary envy to visionary obsession. You close the tab on the world so you can open the file on your identity. In the architecture of privacy, you will encounter the anxiety of the unseen. There will be a voice in your head that says, if no one knows I'm doing this, does it even matter? Or I'm being forgotten. This is the extinction burst of your social ego. It is terrified of insignificance. You must, leaning into this insignificance, you must realize that being forgotten by the mediocre is the prerequisite for being remembered by the great. You are trading temporary attention for permanent authority. You embrace the solitude as a laboratory. You realize that the most powerful version of you is the one who is completely self-contained, the one who could lose everything and still be whole because their value was built in the dark and is not dependent on the light of others. The third law is the law of the finished work. When you finally speak, you speak only through your output. You don't talk about writing a book, and you hand over the manuscript. In this, you don't talk about losing weight. You walk into the room with a transformed body. This finality is the highest form of confidence. It is non-negotiable. Because you did not seek approval during the process, the world cannot devalue the result. You have closed the loop yourself. This self-sustaining validation is the core of your detoxed mind. You have removed the need for outside air. You are aerobic. You are self-oxygenating. You have moved from seeking understanding to commanding results. As you conclude this chapter on privacy, form a blackout protocol. For the next 7 days, you will tell no one about your progress, your thoughts, or your discoveries. You will move through the world like a ghost. You will observe everything and reveal nothing. You will collect the energy that you usually vent in conversation and channel it into a single, difficult task. You are building the walls of your fortress. You have given yourself the permission to be unknown, and you have realized that the only witness that matters is your own integrity. You are dangerous because you are hidden. You are confident because you are finished. Chapter 4. The cognitive sweep. You have silenced the external world and fortified your privacy, but the fortress is still haunted. Even in total isolation, your mind is not empty, and it is populated by cognitive ghosts. These are the internalized voices of past critics, the phantom expectations of your parents, the shame of old failures, and the parasitic worries about a future that hasn't happened. These ghosts are mental malware. They run in the background, consuming your processing power and fragmenting your focus. Most people try to ignore these voices, but suppression only makes them lander. To truly detox, you must perform a cognitive sweep. This is the process of identifying, exercising, and incinerating every thought that does not serve your sovereign mission. You are going to learn how to clean the hard drive of your consciousness. When you are moving from a haunted house to a clean room of logic, the first law of the cognitive sweep is the law of the thought label. Most people identify with their thoughts. They believe that because they think something, it is true, and it is them. When a thought says you're not good enough, they feel inadequate. This identification is the interface that allows the ghosts to control you. To detox, you must objectify the thought. You must move from I am anxious to there is a thought of anxiety. You are the observer, not the subject. When a ghost speaks, you don't argue with it. You categorize it. You say, that is a ghost of a 2018 failure, or that is a projection of my father's insecurity. By naming the ghost, you strip it of its invisibility and its authority. You realize that your mind is a biologically hardwired survival machine that produces random data. You are the chief information officer who decides which data is actionable and which is garbage. You move from victim to auditor. Consider the architecture of the open loop. Every unfinished task, every unsaid word, and every unresolved conflict in your life is an open loop in your brain. Your subconscious is constantly pinging these loops to make sure you haven't forgotten them. This is the Zeigarnik effect. It creates a constant low-level stress that pollutes your mental clarity. To detox, you must close the loops. You perform a brain dump. You write down every single thing that is pending in your mind, from fixing the sink to apologizing to a friend to starting that project. Once it is on paper, the brain stops hoarding the information. You then apply a binary filter. You either execute the task immediately or you delete it from your reality. There is no maybe. You are clearing the cache. You realize that mental space is prime real estate and you are evicting the non-payers. The second law is the principle of the narrative incinerator. You are currently carrying stories about yourself that are limiting your potential. These are the "I'm not good with numbers," or "I'm not a leader," or "I always mess up relationships" narratives. And these stories are mental scaffolding that was built when you were weak or informed. To detox, you must burn the scaffolding. You must realize that the past is a data point, not a destiny. You perform a root cause analysis on your limiting beliefs. You ask, is this factually true in this moment, or is this a ghost of an old experience? Most of the time, it is a linguistic illusion. You incinerate the old story and replace it with evidence-based identity. You look at your competence moat, the skills you actually have today, and you decree a new reality. You move from autobiography to architecture. You are not finding yourself. You are engineering yourself. Furthermore, you must master the economics of emotional debt. Grudges, resentments, and regrets are high-interest loans that you are paying with your current energy. Every time you replay an old betrayal or ruminate on a missed opportunity, you are subsidizing your past at the expense of your future. This is cognitive bankruptcy. To detox, you must write off the debt. You forgive, not out of kindness to the other person, no, but out of sovereign self-interest. You realize that hate is a leash that keeps you tethered to the enemy. You cut the leash, you accept the loss and move on with zero friction. You are closing the account. You move from resentment to indifference. You realize that the highest revenge is to be unrecognizable and unaffected by the old reality. You must also confront the trap of the future hallucination. Much of your mental sludge is worry about scenarios that haven't happened. This is simulated disaster. You are bleeding in the present for a cut you might never receive in the future. To detox, you must ground the mind in the present operation. You replace what if with what is. You focus entirely on the next correct move. You realize that anxiety is just unused energy that needs a target. You channel that energy into hard physicality or deep technical work. You starve the hallucination by feeding the action. You move from speculation to execution. You are too busy building to be worrying. In the cognitive sweep, you will encounter the silence of the clean room. As the ghosts leave, your mind will become quiet, perhaps for the first time in your life. This silence can feel unnatural. You might feel the urge to invite new ghosts in to find new worries or new dramas to fill the space. You must guard the silence. You realize that clarity is not emptiness. On it is readiness. You are ready to process the high-value information of your mission. You are ready to observe the nuance of the market. You are ready to listen to your intuition. You move from noise to nuance. You are sovereign because your internal space is sterile. You are confident because you are unitary. The third law is the law of the perpetual sweep. The ghosts will try to return. They are opportunistic. Every new failure or new criticism is an invitation for a ghost to take up residence. You must develop a nightly cleanse. Before you sleep, you review the data of the day. You extract the lesson and discard the emotion. You close the loops of the day's unfinished business. You audit the narrative you are telling yourself. And you ensure that you are entering the void of sleep with a zero balance. You are resetting your identity every 24 hours. You realize that detox is not an event. It is a standard of hygiene. As you conclude this chapter on the cognitive sweep, perform an exorcism ritual. Take a physical notebook and write down the 3 biggest ghosts that have been haunting your focus. Identify exactly whose voice they are. Then write a final decree for each one. This data is outdated. The account is closed. I no longer authorize this narrative. Then destroy the page. But you have cleaned the house. You have given yourself the permission to be unburdened. And you have realized that the only voice that carries weight is the one that is speaking in the present intent. You are dangerous because you are sane. You are confident because you are clear. Chapter 5. The physical anchor. You have scrubbed the internal hard drive and silenced the social ghosts, but a detoxed mind cannot exist in a vacuum. The mind is not a floating entity. It is a biological output of a physical machine. If the machine is leaking, rusted, or uncalibrated, the mind will eventually relapse into the old patterns of anxiety and fragmentation. Most people treat mental health as a purely intellectual exercise, but the sovereign understands that biology dictates cognition. To truly detox, you must establish a physical anchor. This is the process of grounding your new mental clarity in hard physicality. You are going to learn how to use your body to buffer your mind against the entropy of the world. You are moving from fragile intellect to integrated power. You are going to learn how to lock in the detox through somatic discipline. The first law of the physical anchor is the law of the high friction body. A soft body creates a soft mind. If your physical existence is defined by comfort, convenience, and sensory indulgence, your mind will naturally seek the path of least resistance. It will crave the dopamine hit because it has no physical resilience. To detox, you must callous the machine. You must engage in high-friction physicality, lifting heavy loads, to enduring thermal stress, cold and heat, and pushing past the point of perceived exhaustion. This is not about aesthetics, it is about neurological hardening. When you force your body to endure a cold plunge or a heavy set, you are training your prefrontal cortex to override the impulse to escape. You are building the muscle of executive control. This physical grit acts as an anchor for your mental focus. You realize that if I can handle this physical resistance, I can handle that mental distraction. You move from reactive to proactive. Consider the architecture of the circadian reset. Your mind's detoxification process primarily happens during deep sleep via the glymphatic system, the brain's waste management service. If your sleep is fragmented by blue light, late-night consumption, or irregular cycles, your mental sludge never clears. You wake up with cognitive residue. To detox, you must anchor your biology to the natural light cycle. You must view sunlight within the first hour of waking to set the clock of your cortisol and melatonin. You must eliminate artificial inputs 2 hours before sleep. This biological alignment ensures that your internal environment is optimized for recovery. You are not just sleeping, you are defragmenting. You realize that a perfect morning begins the night before. You move from groggy confusion to surgical sharpness. The second law is the principle of the somatic boundary. Your posture is a feedback loop to your brain. The insecure mind manifests as a collapsed body, rounded shoulders, shallow breathing, and a downward gaze. This shape tells your nervous system that you are in danger, which triggers anxiety and mental clutter. To detox, you must adopt the shape of sovereignty. You practice expansive physicality. You open the frame, you deepen the breath, and you steady the gaze. This physical command sends a signal of safety to the amygdala. It quiets the alarm system of the brain, allowing for higher-order thinking. You are using biology to hack psychology. You realize that you cannot think your way into a new way of acting, but you can act your way into a new way of thinking. You move from contraction to expansion. Furthermore, you must master the economics of biofuel. Your brain is the most energy-expensive organ in your body. If you are feeding it inflammatory compounds, processed sugars, chemical additives, and liquid stress, excessive caffeine, you are clouding the lens of your consciousness. You are creating brain fog. To detox, you must clean the fuel line. You move to a high-density, anti-inflammatory diet. You prioritize hydration and electrolytes. You realize that mental clarity is a chemical result. You stop eating for pleasure and start fueling for mission. You treat your nutrition as a cognitive enhancer. By reducing systemic inflammation, you increase signal clarity. You move from sluggish perception to high-resolution awareness. You must also confront the trap of the sedentary mind. The human brain evolved to process information while in motion. When you sit still for 8 hours, staring at a screen, your cognitive faculty begins to stagnate. Your creative problem-solving shuts down. To detox, you must integrate movement. You use walking as a tool for thinking. You use Zone 2 cardio to flush the system. You realize that physical flow leads to mental flow. Some of your most brilliant insights will not occur at your desk, but in the rhythm of a long walk. You move from static analysis to kinetic insight. You are thinking with your whole body. In the physical anchor, you will encounter the feedback of the pulse. As your body becomes harder and cleaner, your resting heart rate will drop, and your heart rate variability, HRV, will increase. This is the statistical proof of your autonomic sovereignty. You are becoming less reactive to external stress. When a mental ghost or a social crisis hits, your body remains calm. Because the body is calm, the mind can process the data without panic. You have created a buffer zone between event and response. This gap is where dangerous confidence lives. You are unshakable because your foundation is solid. You move from fragile to anti-fragile. The third law is the law of the ritualized body. To maintain the detox, you must anchor your day in physical bookends. You begin with physical stress, the workout/the cold, to wake the machine, and you end with physical release, the stretch/the breath, to reset the machine. This ritualization creates a sovereign rhythm. It tells your mind exactly what mode it should be in. You are not a slave to the whims of your mood, and you are the operator of the protocol. You realize that discipline is the highest form of self-love. You move from entropy to architecture. As you conclude this chapter on the physical anchor, perform a somatic audit. Stand up and assess your current shape. Are you collapsed or expanded? Are you inflamed or clean? For the next 48 hours, you will prioritize the machine. You will eat clean, move heavy, and sleep deep. You will observe how your mental clarity follows your physical output. You have given yourself the permission to be strong, and you have realized that the sovereign mind requires a fortified throne. You are dangerous because you are vibrant. You are confident because you are integrated. Chapter 6. The Social Filter. You have fortified the machine and cleared the internal haunting, but as you re-engage with the world, you encounter the most pervasive source of mental pollution: other people. Most individuals are walking reservoirs of unexamined anxiety, low-level drama, and victim narratives. Because humans are biologically wired for social mimicry, your mind naturally syncs with the frequency of those around you. If you spend your time with cognitive sludge, you will eventually become sludge. To maintain your detox, you must implement a social filter. This is the transition from default belonging to strategic association. You are going to learn how to audit your relationships with surgical coldness. You are moving from a social open-door policy to a strictly governed border. You are going to learn how to protect the frequency of your new, clean consciousness. The first law of the social filter is the law of emotional contagion. Your mirror neurons are constantly simulating the states of the people you interact with. But if you are in a room with someone who is perpetually outraged or deeply insecure, your brain is processing that stress as if it were your own. This is passive pollution. You can do all the internal work, but if you return to a toxic environment, you are pouring ink into clean water. To detox, you must perform a relational audit. You must categorize every person in your inner circle as either a battery, who provides clarity and challenge, or a drain, who provides noise and complication. There is no neutral. You must move toward a binary association. You prioritize the batteries and liquidate the drains. You realize that loyalty to a sinking ship is just slow-motion suicide. You move from sentimentality to sovereign alignment. Consider the architecture of the status quo anchor. Your old social group has a vested interest in you staying the same. Your growth is a threat to their comfort. When you start thinking for yourself, setting boundaries, and exhibiting dangerous confidence, the group will use shame, guilt, or mockery to pull you back to the baseline. This is the crab bucket effect. To detox, you must sever the anchor. You don't need to argue or explain your new standards. You simply fade. You become unavailable for low-value conversations. You stop responding to drama bait. You realize that loneliness is the price of admission to excellence. You move from the warmth of the herd to the clarity of the heights. You are trading popularity for purity. The second law is the principle of the sovereign network. Once you have cleared the space, you must intentionally populate it with high-resolution individuals. These are people who value truth over comfort, action over complaining, and privacy over broadcasting. When you interact with a sovereign, the social sync is productive. You sharpen each other's logic. You pressure test each other's strategies. This is cognitive, or compounding. You realize that one conversation with a master is worth 1,000 hours of social scrolling. You move from small talk to deep protocol. You are not looking for friends to waste time with. You are looking for allies to build reality with. You are constructing an external hard drive of excellence. Furthermore, you must master the economics of social signaling. Most social interaction is just status signaling. People trying to prove they are smart, rich, or moral. This performance is mental exhaustion. To detox, you must opt out of the signal war. You adopt the neutral frame. You don't compete for attention. You don't brag about your progress. You don't correct people when they are wrong about you. This lack of thirst for social status makes you unreadable and powerful. You realize that the most powerful person in the room is the one who needs nothing from the room. You move from seeking acceptance to commanding presence through indifference. You must also confront the trap of the digital social ghost extended. Even if you have filtered your physical circle, you are likely still haunted by the digital avatars of people from your past. This is lingering pollution. To build a true social filter, you must perform a digital exorcism. You delete the followers who are anchors. You mute the influencers who are drains. You realize that social media is a low-resolution simulation of status. You stop participating in the simulation. You move from being liked by the many to being respected by the competent. You realize that privacy is the new luxury, and anonymity is the new power move. In the social filter, you will encounter the pressure of the guilt trip. People will say, and you've changed, or you're being cold. You must realize that this is a compliment. It means your detox is working. You have changed from a malleable subject to a unitary sovereign. You meet their guilt with neutral kindness. You don't retaliate, but you don't retreat. You maintain your boundary. You realize that you cannot save the drowning if they are committed to the water. You lead by example, not by explanation. You move from codependency to absolute independence. The third law is the law of the just-in-time network. You only invite people into your consciousness who are relevant to the current mission. If you are building, you associate with builders. If you are learning, you associate with teachers. You realize that association is a resource to be managed, not a right to be granted. You are the guardian of your own frequency. You move from passive socializing to active alignment. You are dangerous because your social environment is optimized. You are confident because you are aligned. As you conclude this chapter on the social filter, perform a relational audit. Identify 3 people in your life who drain your mental energy with drama or negativity. For the next 30 days, you will go dark on them. No explanations, no arguments, just silence. Identify 1 person who challenges you to be clearer and harder. Reach out to them with a value proposition or a technical question. You are closing the gates to the noise and opening the doors to the signal. You have given yourself the permission to be selective, and you have realized that the quality of your mind is the average of the 5 minds you authorize to enter your space. Chapter 7. The Sovereign Morning. The battle for your mind is won or lost in the first 120 minutes of the day. Most people begin their morning in a state of digital submission. They reach for their phone before their eyes are even fully open, allowing the outrage, the notifications, and the agendas of the world to flood their fresh theta state consciousness. What if they are reacting before they are being? This reactive start sets a low-frequency tone for the rest of the day, ensuring that their mental detox is sabotaged before breakfast. To be truly sovereign, you must implement the sovereign morning. This is the process of securing the perimeter of your mind during its most malleable state. And you are going to learn how to use the first 120 minutes to calibrate your internal compass and execute your primary mission without external interference. You are moving from chaos to command. The first law of the sovereign morning is the law of the analog buffer. Your brain transitions through different brainwave states as you wake up, from the deep delta of sleep to the creative theta and the relaxed alpha, before finally hitting the high-frequency beta of active logic. This transition zone is where your deepest insights and core identity are formed. If you inject a smartphone into this process, you flash fry your neural circuitry into high beta stress. You are forcing your brain to process 1 million micro data points before it has even anchored its own identity. To detox, or you must enforce a 120-minute analog buffer. Your phone does not exist. The internet does not exist. The world does not exist. You are in a digital blackout. This silence allows your subconscious to surface the solutions it worked on during the night. You are reclaiming the sacred space of your emergent consciousness. Consider the architecture of the first input. The first thing you feed your mind in the morning colors your entire perception. If you feed it social media, you are feeding it envy and noise. If you feed it news, you are feeding it fear. To be dangerously clear, you must feed the mission. Your first input must be high resolution and self-generated. You write in a journal to extract the residual thoughts of the night. You read a foundational text to align your logic with greatness. You review your sovereign goals to magnetize your focus. You are setting the narrative for the day. You are the author of your reality, not the reader of someone else's. Look, you move from input to initialization. The second law is the principle of the physical ignition. A detoxed mind requires a high-energy biological foundation. You cannot think with clarity if your body is still stagnant and hypoxic. You must ignite the machine through hard physicality. This is the biochemical reset. You engage in breathwork to oxygenate the brain. You use cold exposure to trigger a long-lasting dopamine release and adrenaline spike that is internal and stable. You perform high-intensity movement to flush the cortisol of the night. With this physical shock, clears the cognitive residue and sharpens the focus. You are proving to your mind that you are the operator. You move from sluggishness to vibrancy. You are ready for deep work because your biology is optimized. Furthermore, you must master the economics of the deep work block. Your cognitive capital is at its highest peak in the morning. This is the only time of day when you have zero decision fatigue. To detox, you must invest this capital in your most difficult to most important task. You do not check email, you do not schedule meetings, you do not administer, you produce. You enter a 90-minute deep work cell. You lock the door, silence the world, and attack the core challenge of your mission. This front-loading of excellence ensures that even if the rest of the day becomes chaos, you have already won. You have converted your mental clarity into objective progress. You move from busy to effective. You must also confront the trap of the morning socialization. Many people dilute their morning power by engaging in trivial conversation with family, roommates, or partners. And while connection is important, morning small talk is often just verbal noise that disrupts your internal calibration. To build a true sovereign morning, you must develop functional silence. You move through your rituals with minimal verbal interaction. You protect your mental workspace. You realize that true presence with others is better served when you have first secured your own integrity. You move from fragmented attention to unitary focus. In the sovereign morning, you will encounter the urge to check. This is the addiction begging for a hit. Your brain will tell you that there is an emergency in your inbox or a vital update on Twitter. You must realize that nothing is more urgent than your sovereignty. If the world is burning, it will still be burning in 120 minutes. Or by refusing to check, you are building the muscle of impulse control. You are proving that you own your attention. This self-mastery is the source of dangerous confidence. You move from slave to master. The third law is the law of the intentional transition. At the end of your 120-minute blackout, you do not crash back into the noise. You transition with intent. You open the gates to the world on your terms. You check the inputs only after you have executed the outputs. You move from your analog buffer to your digital workspace with surgical precision. You carry the stillness of the morning into the chaos of the day. You realize that the morning was not a break from reality. It was the engineering of a new reality. As you conclude this chapter on the sovereign morning, I could perform a space audit, identify the one device that sabotages your morning, and move it to a charging station outside of your bedroom. For the next 7 days, you will enforce the 120-minute blackout. No exceptions. No excuses. You will observe the massive increase in your cognitive power and emotional stability. You have given yourself the permission to be unreachable, and you have realized that the first 2 hours are the down payment on your total sovereignty. You are dangerous because you are ahead. You are confident because you are calibrated. Chapter 8. The decision engine. Your mind is now a clean, high-performance sanctuary. You have purged the ghosts, anchored your biology, and secured your mornings. But a detoxed mind is not a static one. It is a machine that must constantly process the raw data of the future. Every day, the world will present you with thousands of micro-choices and dozens of macro decisions. If you do not have a sovereign filter, the mental sludge will begin to accumulate again. You will find yourself overthinking, worrying, and leaking energy into low-value paths. To maintain your clarity, you must build a decision engine. This is the process of automating your logic so that choice no longer requires willpower. You are going to learn how to binary filter your reality. Today you are moving from analysis paralysis to surgical execution. You are going to learn how to filter the future before it even reaches your consciousness. The first law of the decision engine is the law of the hell yes or no. Most people live in the maybe zone. They accept invitations they don't want, they entertain business deals that don't align, and they think about options that are clearly suboptimal. This maybe zone is the graveyard of focus. Every maybe is a cognitive loop that stays open, draining your processor. To detox, you must adopt a radical binary. If a choice does not elicit an immediate, visceral hell, yes, the answer is a deafening no. There is no middle ground. By eliminating the mediocre, you conserve the energy required for the exceptional. You realize that no is a protective shield for your mental purity. You move from pleasing everyone to mastering the mission. You are simplifying your future by reducing the variables. Consider the architecture of the first principles filter. When faced with a complex decision, most people use analogy. They look at what others are doing or what they did last time. This is low-resolution thinking that inherits the errors of the herd. The sovereign uses first principles. You deconstruct the decision to its atomic truths. You ask, what are the fundamental facts here? Independent of my emotions or social pressure? You strip away the story and examine the mechanics. This surgical analysis removes the mental fog of subjectivity. You realize that most difficult decisions are actually simple math. Once you remove the ego, you move from feeling to calculation. You are deciding with the coldness of a sovereign. The second law is the principle of the pre-mortem. Much of your mental clutter comes from anxiety about the consequences of a decision. You hallucinate failure and ruminate on disaster. To detox this future worry, you must systematize the failure. Before you commit to a major path, you perform a pre-mortem. You imagine that it is 1 year from now and the project has failed miserably. You then trace the cause of that failure. Was it lack of focus? Was it bad partnership? Was it external shift? By visualizing the ghost of failure in advance, you identify the gaps in your current strategy. You fix the leak before the water even enters the ship. This strategic pessimism leads to radical optimism during execution. You move from fear to risk management. You have closed the loop on worry by turning it into data. Furthermore, you must master the economics of decision fatigue. Your ability to choose is a degrading resource. Every trivial decision, what to wear, what to eat, which email to open, drains the battery of your executive function. To detox, you must automate the trivial. You standardize your diet, your uniform, and your schedule. You remove the need to decide on low-value elements. This mental offloading ensures that your peak intelligence is reserved for the high-value operations. You realize that freedom is not having infinite choices. Freedom is having infinite focus because your systems are robust. You move from choosing to operating. You are protecting the quality of your highest decisions. You must also confront the trap of the sunk cost fallacy. Many people clutter their minds by clinging to bad decisions simply because they have already invested time, money, or identity into them. This is cognitive hoarding. To be dangerously clear, you must develop a zero-based logic. You ask yourself, if I were starting from scratch today with the data I have now, would I choose this path again? If the answer is no, you liquidate the position immediately. You do not rationalize, you do not hope. You cut the loss and reclaim the space. You realize that regret is just mental pollution. You move from defending the past to optimizing the future. You are unsentimental in your pursuit of utility. In the decision engine, you will encounter the lure of the consensus. When faced with a hard choice, the insecure mind wants to pollute its logic by asking for opinions. You seek advice from people who have no skin in the game. This social pollution creates confusion. The sovereign consults the competent, but decides in solitude. You realize that agreement is not accuracy. You extract the data from experts, but you maintain the frame of final authority. You move from democracy to monarchy. You own the consequence, so you own the decree. This extreme ownership is the source of unshakable confidence. The third law is the law of the 70% speed. The perfectionist mind is a toxic mind. It waits for 100% certainty before it acts. This delay is a pollutant that allows doubt to fester. To detox, you must execute at 70% certainty. You realize that action is a source of information that thinking cannot access. By moving fast, you outrun the ghosts of insecurity. You pivot based on feedback, rather than hallucinating the perfect path. You move from analysis to momentum. You are dangerous because you are decisive. You are confident because you are adjusting in real time. As you conclude this chapter on the decision engine, perform a strategic liquidation. Identify one project, one commitment, or one relationship that you have been keeping on life support through indecision. Use the binary filter and zero-based logic. If it isn't a hell yes, it is a no. End it today. Feel the instant surge of mental energy as that open loop closes. And you have given yourself the permission to be ruthless, and you have realized that the quality of your life is the average of the decisive moves you have the courage to make. You are dangerous because you are unstalled. You are confident because you are directed. Chapter 9. The Emotional Stoic. You have optimized your biology, curated your inputs, and built a high-speed decision engine. You are a sovereign operator. But the ultimate test of a detoxed mind is not how it functions in a vacuum of control. It is how it functions during the external shock. The world is indifferent to your internal order. It will throw black swan events at you, a market crash, a sudden betrayal, a health crisis, or a public smear. Most people, and even those who have cleaned their minds, relapse into emotional chaos the moment the pressure rises. They fracture under the weight of the unexpected. To be truly dangerous, you must achieve the state of the emotional stoic. This is the process of developing a psychological buffer between event and reaction. You are going to learn how to neutralize the shock before it can pollute your clarity. You are moving from fragile sensitivity to tactical indifference. The first law of the emotional stoic is the law of the 3-second gap. When a negative event occurs, your amygdala attempts to hijack your logic. It wants to flood your system with cortisol and adrenaline, forcing you into a fight or flight response. And this chemical spike is the source of reactive decisions and mental fog. To detox, you must enforce the gap. When the shock hits, you do nothing. You do not speak, you do not email, and you do not decide. You count to 3 and observe the physical sensation of the stress without identifying with it. This gap allows your prefrontal cortex to regain control. You move from automatic reaction to conscious response. You realize that speed in emotion is a weakness, but speed in logic is a weapon. You move from explosive to implosive. Shutterstock. Explore. Consider the architecture of the control circle filter. Much of your emotional pollution comes from worrying about things that are outside your influence. The opinion of a critic, the action of a competitor, or the volatility of the economy. This is cognitive leakage. To be dangerously clear, you must apply the dichotomy of control. You surgically divide every event into 2 categories: internal, your thoughts, your actions, your preparation, and external, everything else. You invest 100% of your energy into the internal and assign 0% value to the external. You realize that caring about what you cannot change is a mental illness. You move from global anxiety to local execution. You are unshakable because your success is defined by your integrity, not by the outcome. The second law is the principle of the objective narrative. When a shock occurs, your mind immediately begins to spin a story. If you lose a client, the story says, "I'm failing." If you are insulted, the story says, I'm disrespected. These stories are the pollutants. The sovereign practices surgical description. You strip the adjectives from the event. You don't say, "I had a terrible day." You say, "I received 3 rejections." You don't say, "They betrayed me." You say, "Their actions did not align with their previous statements." By removing the drama, you expose the data. You realize that facts don't hurt, only interpretations hurt. You move from victimhood to auditing. You are processing the reality without the mental sludge of personal offense. Furthermore, you must master the economics of the worst-case scenario. Fear thrives in the vague shadows of the future. It pollutes your present by threatening you with unseen horrors. To detox this fear, you must invite the ghost to dinner. You perform premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils. You explicitly visualize the absolute worst-case scenario in graphic detail. You see the loss, the shame, and the poverty. Then you build a plan for that scenario. You realize that even in the worst case, you are still sovereign and you can still execute. Once the fear is mapped, it loses its power to distract you. You move from avoidance to preparedness. You are dangerous because you have already accepted the loss, making you fearless in the pursuit of the win. You must also confront the trap of the empathetic drain. Many people pollute their detoxed mind by absorbing the chaos of others. You believe that feeling bad for someone is helping them. This is codependent toxicity. To be an emotional stoic, you must practice detached compassion. You provide utility, you offer logic, and you set the example, but you do not sync with their vibration. You realize that the best way to help a drowning person is to stay on the boat and throw a rope, not to jump in the water and drown with them. You move from emotional resonance to functional support. You are the static point in their storm. In the emotional stoic, you will encounter the lure of the public defense. When you are attacked or misunderstood, your ego will scream for you to correct the record and defend your honor. This is a cognitive trap. It forces you to dance to the tune of the attacker. The sovereign knows that indifference is the ultimate insult. You do not respond, you do not explain. You continue your mission as if the attack has zero mass. You realize that your integrity is built in the dark and cannot be damaged by noise in the light. You move from defensive to imperial. You are dangerous because you are unprovocable. The third law is the law of the amor fati, love of fate. This is the final stage of the emotional detox. You don't just endure the shock, you embrace it. As you realize that resistance, challenge, and setbacks are the raw materials of your growth. You treat failure as data and pain as fuel. You say good to every obstacle because every obstacle is an opportunity to practice your sovereignty. This radical acceptance clears the last residue of resentment from your mind. You are no longer fighting reality, you are using reality. You move from endurance to anti-fragility. As you conclude this chapter on the emotional stoic, perform a stress test. Identify one current worry or recent shock that is polluting your clarity. Use the surgical description to strip the adjectives. Use the control circle filter to discard the external. Then, I'd say good to the remaining data and identify the next correct move. You have given yourself the permission to be detached, and you have realized that the only person who can upset you is you. You are dangerous because you are steady. You are confident because you are impenetrable. Chapter 10. The Sovereign Mind. The 180-day purification of your consciousness is complete. You have moved from the high entropy chaos of the average person to the low entropy power of the sovereign. You have purged the chemical addictions of the dopamine loop, curated a surgical information diet, and built a fortress of privacy. You have exercised the mental ghosts and anchored your clarity in a hardened physical machine. But as you stand at the finish line, you must realize that a detox is not a one-time event. The world is a thermodynamic system that naturally moves toward disorder. The sludge will always try to return. To achieve sovereign mastery, you must transition from doing a detox to being a detoxed mind. You are moving from a project to a permanent state of clarity. You are going to learn how to maintain the machine while executing at the highest level. You are moving from cleaning to operating. The first law of sovereign mastery is the law of the entropy century. You must realize that your mental clarity is a decaying resource. Every conversation, every notification, and every decision is a potential source of pollution. You must develop a permanent border guard. You are no longer open by default. Or do you interrogate every input before it enters your sanctuary? You ask, is this data true? Is this data actionable? Does this data align with my mission? If the answer is no, you refuse entry with zero emotional friction. You are the customs official of your own consciousness. You move from vulnerability to selective permeability. You realize that protecting your peace is not arrogance, it is stewardship. You are dangerous because you are impenetrable. Consider the architecture of the recursive reset. Mastery is the ability to self-correct in real time. You don't wait for a crisis to clean the mind. You perform micro-detoxes throughout the day. You use the gap between meetings to reset the breath. You use the end of the hour to close the tabs of the mind. And you use the sunset to black out the digital. This recursive maintenance ensures that the sludge never has a surface to stick to. You are a self-cleaning system. You move from periodic overhaul to constant calibration. You realize that mastery is the sum of small disciplines. You are the engineer of the infinite loop. The second law is the principle of the creative surplus. A detoxed mind is not an empty mind, it is a pressurized mind, because you are not venting your energy into distraction, drama, or social validation. That energy begins to accumulate, it becomes a creative surplus. This pressure is the source of genius and innovation. You channel this surplus into your primary output. You don't think about starting. You are forced to start because your mind has nowhere else to go. You move from searching for motivation to managing momentum. You realize that focus is the natural result of excess energy with nowhere to leak. You move from scarcity to abundance. You are dangerous because you are overwhelmingly productive. Furthermore, you must master the economics of the long gaze. The polluted mind is short-sighted. It is addicted to the immediate hit and the instant feedback. The sovereign mind is temporal sovereign. You think in decades but execute in seconds. You realize that time is your primary leverage. By staying clear for 180 days, you have outlasted the attention span of 99% of the population. You invest your attention in compounding assets, skills, networks, icon systems that grow while you sleep. You move from chasing trends to building legacies. You are unshakable because your timeline is longer than your obstacles. You move from anxious to patiently inevitable. You must also confront the trap of the spiritual plateau. As your clarity becomes normal, you will be tempted to relax your standards. You will feel safe enough to check the news or engage in the gossip. This is the regression to the mean. To avoid this, you must raise the standard. You increase the friction. You deepen the solitude. You attack harder problems. You realize that comfort is the precursor to pollution. You invite challenge to keep the blade sharp. You move from maintaining to evolving. You realize that the detox was not the goal, the transformation of the soul was the goal. In sovereign mastery, you will encounter the isolation of the high frequency. As you become dangerously focused and clinically clear, you will find that you have fewer peers. The noise of the world will become distal and irrelevant. You must befriend the silence. You realize that loneliness is just sovereignty in disguise. You seek the counsel of the greats through their timeless works, and you ignore the chatter of the living dead. You move from social acceptance to historical stature. You are confident because you are self-validated. You are sovereign because you are unitary. The third law is the law of the just-in-case void. Even when you are at your most productive, you must intentionally create space for nothing. You protect a percentage of your life for total unstructured silence. This void is where the next level of insight is born. It is the buffer that prevents the burnout. You realize that the best way to protect the mind is to occasionally turn it off. You move from constant operation to rhythmic power. You are the master of the pulse. As you conclude this 10-chapter journey, perform the final decree. Look back at the fog you lived in 6 months ago. Recognize that person as a stranger. You have closed the door on that timeline. You have given yourself the permission to be brilliant, and you have realized that the only enemy you ever had was your own distraction. You are dangerous because you know the truth. You are confident because you are clear. The detox is complete. The operation begins now.